First of all, Secretary Moniz, thank you so much for that introduction and for your great remarks. You know, it's not every day that you are introduced by a rock star in science and international diplomacy, too. So it's very much appreciated. I also want to thank every single one of you who is here, who was part of the Better Buildings Challenge. And before I start my prepared remarks, let me just say two things. Number one, I think the last time that we were in here was a couple of weeks ago for the White House Correspondents' Dinner, and I can promise you that I won't be nearly as funny as the folks were a couple of weeks ago. And secondly, I know that we have folks here from throughout the country. Is there anybody here from California? All right, the Californians are kind of quiet today. Is there anybody from New York? Illinois? How about Texas? Colorado? How about here in Washington, D.C.? All right, well, wherever you're from, bienvenidos a Washington. Welcome to Washington. And we're happy to have you here, and even more happy for the accomplishments of the Better Buildings Challenge. I want to thank all of the folks at the Department of Energy and in each and every one of the communities and companies that are represented here, as well as the nonprofits, for the fantastic work that you're doing. You know, when President Obama took office, he dared the nation to embrace a new era of technology, a new era of energy production, and a new era of American innovation. And just 7 years later, the American people have answered that call. The United States now generates 30 times as much solar power as we did back in 2008. And we've tripled the amount of energy that we get from wind. In fact, we're the world's #1 producer of wind power, and the industry supports 90,000 jobs across the United States. So it's clear that we're making great strides in harnessing the air and the sun, and that we're doing so at near light speeds. But our nation's progress hasn't just come from the renewable energy sector, although, of course, that has been fantastically impactful. It's also come from your hard work. Folks in state and local government, nonprofits that are working to reduce energy costs in public office buildings and private office buildings and other commercial buildings, and saving taxpayer dollars in the process. Folks from the commercial sector, companies like Best Buy and Starbucks, making energy efficient improvements across their properties, and manufacturers like 3M and Alcoa that are transforming their operations in factories and in plants throughout the nation. Now, I know that not everyone is doing this just out of the kindness of their heart. Your leadership proves that adopting these standards doesn't just make sense for the environment, it also makes dollars and cents for your bottom line. Your work represents the best of what can happen when private industry joins forces with public officials for public good. It saves money, it sparks job growth, and it really is game-changing. It's also creating a climate of opportunity that's spreading in communities throughout the United States. Expanding this opportunity doesn't stop at the office place or the shopping mall or the assembly line. At HUD, we recognize the significant role of housing in tackling the realities posed by climate change. And we're proud to stand as an ally in the Better Buildings Challenge. Every year, residents in multifamily buildings, as the Secretary noted, spend tens of billions of dollars on energy costs. So making these units 20% more efficient could save up to $8 billion a year for hardworking families and cut greenhouse emissions by over 430 million tons. I'm happy to report that 108 multifamily partners have now signed up for the Better Buildings Challenge, the most for any sector in this challenge. So give yourselves a round of applause if you're in the multifamily sector. We're proud of you. Together, they account for nearly 700,000 units and more than 600 million square feet of real estate. And I want to thank each of them for taking on this challenge. We're already seeing their commitments pay off in places like Mankato, Minnesota, where the local development authority has increased its portfolio-wide energy performance by 13% in the last 4 years. Folks in Denver have cut annual energy costs at the North Lincoln homes by 19%, and they've boosted the local economy by purchasing solar panels from a Colorado-based company. And this past April, on Earth Day, the New York City Housing Authority, NYCHA, joined the challenge as our largest multifamily partner and pledged to build 2.5 million square feet of solar panels by 2025. That's enough space to cover nearly 45 football fields. So the Giants and the Jets better get better. NYCHA's new pledge builds on its ongoing work to fund over $100 million in upgrades across nearly 300 developments, a project that will dramatically lower greenhouse emissions and save millions in taxpayer dollars. And by aiming to fill at least 30% of these jobs with residents of public housing, it should allow New Yorkers of modest means to also share in the promise of our green energy economy. And we're seeing similar efforts across the nation, from Angola, Indiana, to Tampa, Florida, to right here in Washington, D.C. And I want you to know that we're going to keep working until every community can access the economic and environmental benefits that these projects provide. In fact, earlier this year, the Federal Housing Administration also announced new incentives that encourage HUD-supported multifamily owners to build more energy-efficient housing. These incentives will make green building a no-brainer for thousands of newly insured units. They'll help save energy and water. They'll help reduce utility costs and improve the quality of indoor air. And HUD isn't just preparing our nation for a better tomorrow. We're also adapting to the realities that climate change poses right now, today. In the last few years, we've seen intense droughts and wildfires in the West, routine flooding along our eastern coastline, and devastating tornadoes and storms in Texas and the Midwest. So, a few years ago, we partnered with the Rockefeller Foundation on our $1 billion National Disaster Resilience Competition, a groundbreaking initiative that's helping families in 13 states and communities to better prepare for the next event that may wait beyond the horizon. And that includes folks like Tom Unson, a father of two from Dubuque, Iowa. Nearly 5 years ago, a storm slammed Dubuque with over 14 inches of rain in less than half a day. Tom woke up at 2 a.m. that morning to find more than a foot of water in his basement. The Unsons lost their furnace, they lost their washer and dryer, and countless personal belongings. And repeated flooding has led to permanent damage in the foundation of the Unsons' home. Their story proves that it's time to take decisive action to protect Americans from extreme weather, prompted by climate change. Our National Disaster Resilience Competition is part of the solution for folks in Dubuque and in places across our nation. The unfortunate fact is that this work that joins us here today is not just a luxury. It's a necessity. There is urgency to it. Since 2001, we've witnessed 15 of the 16 warmest years on record. And as you know, 2015 was the hottest year in recorded history. Now, of course, it's true that there are still some who deny climate change. But fortunately, the vast majority of folks get it. And the need to take action is something that has united people from both sides of the aisle. After all, it was Richard Nixon who started the Environmental Protection Agency, and it was George H.W. Bush who became one of the first global leaders to acknowledge the the impacts of climate change. So I have faith that our nation can rally around this cause in the years to come. And I'm proud to stand with so many people who understand the importance and the gravity of this task. When the President launched the Better Buildings Challenge in 2011, y'all were the first to volunteer and to answer the call. And while President Obama will no longer be in office when 2020 rolls around, several of us are bummed about that, we also know that this mission is much bigger than a single administration or a single term. So I came here today for two reasons. First, to say thank you for all of the work that you have done. And secondly, to challenge you to remain steadfast in fulfilling the vision of the Better Buildings Challenge. You'll all play a strong role in shaping a brighter future for our nation and our planet. And in doing so, you'll carry on a proud tradition of American pioneers and innovators. I don't have to tell you that America has always been a nation of firsts. We were the first in the world to build great skyscrapers of steel. We were the first to develop the modern assembly line, and it was Americans who invented the first computer chip. Many times in our past, we've seen our determination and our ingenuity elevated by the forces of competition. Back in 1957, when the Soviets launched Sputnik, some feared we'd fallen hopelessly behind in the space race. But instead of giving up, we redoubled our efforts, and 12 years later, became the first people in human history to put a man on the moon. And today, that same spirit is propelling our nation toward the cutting edge of a new age, an age that will transform how the world uses renewable energy and how we'll preserve this planet for those yet to come. So let's make sure that it's America and not our neighbors or our competitors around the world that sets the pace for this 21st century revolution. I want to urge all of you to keep persevering, keep pushing, keep breaking new ground. Keep pushing your CEOs, your boards, and your investors to rethink their approach to doing business in this 21st century global economy. One where returns aren't measured solely against the bottom line, but in the investments we make to safeguard the one amazing planet that we share. Where building is about more than drawing up blueprints for construction, but designing a blueprint that helps mankind forge a more sustainable future. A future where America leads our world into this new era of innovation, inspiration, and conservation. An era that can begin with the bold action that you're taking today. Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.